Herschel rarely ever shares with me any stories. In fact, I've got to be honest and tell you that up until recently, I didn't even know he was, quote-unquote, a survivor. I just figured he lived in the Alter Heim. But upon hearing a couple of his stories and his reluctance to speak grew that much more interest in me to push him to speak. And people in the shul, we had bets on Shabbos, people said you wouldn't speak, Herschel. But I want you to know that you saved me a few bucks because I said you would.
There are very few survivors left. Probably in 10 years from now, will all be history.
It's 100 and something.
I was born in a small town in Bessarabia. It used to belong to the Russians in the First World War. Then it belonged to the Romanians. Then the Russians came back. Then the Romanians came back. So I went to Romanian school. In 1940, the Germans came into our town. They occupied Poland, and from there they came to us. The first thing they did, the soldiers kept on going further, but they called them Sonderkommanders, special German commanders. That's all their job was, is to find the Jews and kill them. They came into my town, and when I heard them speak German, I thought they speak in Yiddish. I said, they can't do bad things to us. They're like us, they speak Yiddish. Little did I know. Then, with the local population pointing out where the Jews were. By the way, when the Russians left, they burned the town. Not the Goyish homes, only the Jewish sections. And the reason they did that, because they knew what the Germans are going to do to the Jews. They didn't want the Germans to get the Jewish wealth, their money, their gold, everything else. So they burned it down. We went to the woods, everybody, all families. Then the local people that were supposed to be our friends, who used to do business with them, pointed out where we were. And anybody that pointed out a Jew, they would get a pound of sugar. This was the price. And of course, now Germans were very smart and very punctual. They had quotas. They came into a town, they said, you're going to kill 20,000 people here. So first one, they killed the elite. The professionals, the doctors, the lawyers, the organizers of the city, and the rabbis. We had a few rabbis. They saw him with a beard. They thought he's a rabbi. He was a shochet, or something like that. A group of Germans came into the woods and they found us. And they took out the men only. And they said, we're taking you to work. They put us up against the wall. I was then 16, 17 years old, with my father. And my mother and sisters were in the woods, right around town. And they had machine guns. And I can't understand to this day that nobody thought what they have in mind. Finally, they started yelling, Jude, lauf, Jew, run. We started running, they started firing, and I don't know, was it an Aspen or Shamayim, or is it whatever it is? We escaped. It didn't take long. They put us in a ghetto. And one day, you know what, it came, the ghetto, but we still had some stuff, suitcases and money that you carried with you. Somewhere they organized thousands of wagons, horse and wagons. They put the women and children on the wagons, and the men walked. And we walked from Khatin all the way to the Ukraine. It took about 20 days, and was in the fall. By the time we hit the Ukraine, the snow was this high. In the meantime, people that were left behind were killed. And that wasn't Germans, Romanians. I think to this day that they were worse than the Germans. They killed more than a half of it, right on the road. Then the farmers came and took everything away from them, the shoes, the clothes. We didn't know what happened. We kept on going. They put us up in homes that Ukrainians ran away with the Russian army to Moscow or further to Siberia. And we stayed in the homes, no heat. And in the winter, it's colder in a house without heat than outside. But first, we were sleeping in the snow. You believe women, children, sleeping in the snow. And every day you got up in the morning, there were hundreds of dead people. Then we came in the house. There were in one house with about 3 rooms, about 50 people. Sleep on the floor. Now, there were still some rich people, they were not rich anymore, professional people, that they had a good life. But from hunger, they just gave up. They sat on the floor, and next morning came and they died. There was nothing to eat, there was nothing to drink. A guy like me, I used to go out in the fields and get potatoes that were frozen already. But you can live on frozen potatoes. One day, a platoon of Romanians came in and took away the men who were left. I was about 17 then. And they took us to a working camp. I would be better off if I'd be dead. Sleeping outside, they were working you to death. And then you come back, that's all they had is hot water with a few potatoes that the Jewish coppers took out the potatoes, and we had the water. I was there about 4 months. And I walked back, me and everybody else. We never thought, what is awaiting you? And when I got back, about 2 weeks later, it was in the Ukraine, the Russians came in. Soon they came in, they drafted me in the army. No uniform, never saw a rifle in my life, and no training, no basic training. Go. People didn't, with the Russian army, see, when I was in the American army, they teach you, if a plane comes in, hide under a truck, because a human being, an American soldier was insured for $20,000, if you want to believe in that. A truck was costing only $5,000. So let him knock out the truck, but you stay alive. In the Russian army, if you drive a truck and you come back without the truck, they ask you, where's the truck? Because the truck meant a lot more. and I went to war. And we walked from the Ukraine all the way to Berlin. But as we walked, we chased the Germans. And the Germans ran so fast that the kitchens couldn't keep up with us. The only clothes and food that you took off from German, they got killed. Now you're walking around a Russian soldier with a German uniform. You have to watch out that either another Russian thinks you're a German, you're going to get killed. So it was a tumultuous life. Finally, I'll make it short, the war is over. Thank God, I was in Berlin, and I walked around in the streets, and the first time I saw an American in general. And then when I saw a black American, I didn't know what to think. It's for the first time that I never knew that. But anyhow, and I saw the American soldiers had everything. Nylon stockings that they gave to the women. They ate chocolate. And we were starving in the Russian army. The walk was worse than when I was with the Germans. I envied at night a dog barking. They just kept on chasing you, chased the Germans out. Well, I was in Berlin, I had a uniform, I had a gun. There was and peace, because at that time Berlin was wide open. And I put my gun on the table and I says, I'm not going back. A deserter. Of course, if the Russians would catch me, they'd kill me. A deserter, that was the worst offense. They never missed me because it was such... Then, the same night, I flew back to, not back, forward to Munich, Germany. That was the American occupation. And I went to a DP camp, displaced person camp. And I stayed there for a while, and then I immigrated to the United States. At that time, there were a lot of organizations in the United States. The Hayas, the Jewish, all kinds of Jewish organizations, and they helped a lot. If you needed an apartment, you needed a job, there were a lot of families, and they were very good. It was in Lafayette Street in New York, I still remember. I went there a couple of times, and then I said to myself, why did I come here? I never came back. I didn't want anything, I didn't need anything, but I am nobody. You come alone in New York, no language, no trade. At least the people that were married already, they got married in Germany. They started a family. The joint distribution helped them find apartments, they find jobs. I found a job. I was walking on First Avenue, and early in the morning, because I had a little room on the Lancey Street, and I had to walk at night because the bed bugs were killing me, so I walked the street. As I walked on First Avenue, there was a Jewish man sitting there, and he stopped me. He says, Amcho? I said, yeah. Come here, sit down. A Romanian, a landsman. He hired me. First he took me into a candy store and he bought me tea and a roll with butter, and he hired me, laying linoleum, carrying 5-gallon cans up 6 stories. After a while, and he paid me $18 a week and bought me tea and a roll every morning. after a couple of weeks, I knew the business. So I told him, Mr. Feldman, I know how to do it. So he says, okay. After a couple of weeks, I asked him for a raise. He chased me out. I bought you breakfast every day and you embarrass me, you want a raise? I said, forget it. Go. And when I started and I became a little, that's all I wanted to do, is to take advantage and to show them that I made it. And after about a year, I bought a Lincoln Continental at that time. And I got dressed, and I got into the car, and I pull up on First Avenue and 7th Street. And I go out, I park near, and I said, Mr. Feldman there? He said, who? Mr. Feldman. Oh, he died 3 years ago. I was so disappointed. But life was going on, and I am now 86 years old. The Eberster was good to me. But I was a little bit disappointed. My birthday is April 15th, tax day.
Mr. Feldman has something to say about
that. And I'm still disappointed.
So what was Yiddishkeit like in your shtetl? Which shtetl did you live, your parents?
Where?
In Hungary?
Khatin, in Bessarabia.
How many, was a lot of Jews?
At about 30,000 Jews.
Wow.
We had old age homes, we had yeshivas, we had everything. And there was always problems with the Goyim, you know. We were afraid in the summers when it's very, very hot. You know, not only air conditioning, we didn't even have indoor plumbing or electricity, radios, nothing. The women in the winter, that's all they did, is flicking feather. You know what that is?
Like chickens?
No, feather.
No, not for chicken. This was, they used to come together and sing, and we were happy.
What did your father do?
Who?
What's his profession? Your father?
My father? Yeah. He used to work with other people. He was not a rich man. My mother was very frum. My father, he used to go for Yom Tov to small towns. There were no Fixler, and this is what he used to do also in my shul. I don't remember whether he got paid or not. My grandfather lived to 100, and he had a wholesale grocery store. Not rich, but so I would say we were not middle class, lower middle class. There was enough food, there was enough to eat, but it was constant trouble. The Romanians got out of control. They were worse than the Germans.
How many in your family?
What?
How many siblings?
My mother had 10 children.
Your mother had 10 children?
6 didn't make it.
By childbirth or?
We didn't have doctors, we didn't have anything. You were lucky that half of them survived. So I had a brother, an older brother, and 2 sisters. My father died in the cold house from hunger.
You were there with him?
My mother died the second night when they chased us up. We got up in the morning, she was dead.
How old was she?
How old? About 48. 50-something.
You were there with her?
Yes.
So how did you bury her? What did they do?
There was the Havre Kadisha, they were in town. Somehow they were strong people, they made it. So where they buried on the field, I don't know when, I don't know where. My father died in the house. A gendarme came in and tried, he had good shoes. Take it from him, they couldn't because his feet were swollen. And one morning he got up, he was dead. But the richer you were, and the more you were catered in your life, they couldn't make it.
Didn't know how to survive.
You had to be rough and tough to make it, and lucky.
And your siblings?
What?
Your siblings?
Well, my sister, she was older than me. I get up in the morning, and I go over to her. She slept on boards. There was nothing. I saw all of a sudden blood coming out from her nose and her mouth. I don't know what it was. She grabbed my hand, and she was dead in 5 minutes. I had to struggle to pull my hand out. You see all these things. It makes you... You're not human. You see, usually countries, if they execute people, it's because they're spies, they're thieves, We got executed for nothing, only because we're Jews. You are not allowed to live. And you have to maneuver your life to stay alive. That's where you got 6 million, and maybe there are more. Nobody really knows, because I wasn't the one that came from Poland. Most of the Jews, maybe 3 million of them, were killed in Poland.